In the Utah desert, there's a secret no one tells you about. In the midst of 104-degree heat, where life seems to have vanished, the U.S. government is conducting a reckless experiment, releasing hundreds of beavers into one of the driest deserts on the planet, with no water, no vegetation, only dust, and a script of failure predicted in just 48 hours. This isn't a conservation project, it's a desperate gamble. But 6 months later, from NASA headquarters, infrared satellites flew over this arid land and recorded a striking scene. Bands of intense green, rapidly expanding. In the middle of the gray desert, life was returning almost miraculously. How is it possible that a 44-pound rodent could defy the laws of nature and accomplish a mission in which multi-million-dollar human machines failed spectacularly? And more importantly, why did the United States have to gamble on such an absurd option? The answer lies in a brutal reality. Utah is disappearing day by day. When the water recedes, what remains is not fertile land, but a layer of fine dust containing arsenic and heavy metals. A single gust of wind is enough to lift that dust into the air and disperse it throughout the region. Millions of people living around the lake will be the first to breathe it in. And that's not the worst of it. The Colorado River, the water source that sustains more than 40 million people, has just reached its lowest level in 1,200 years. 39% of its flow has disappeared, not temporarily, but permanently, if things continue as they are. The paradox is that humankind is the cause of this catastrophe through its own misguided restoration efforts. For decades, we transformed natural rivers into veritable water highways. Engineers straightened riverbeds and built concrete canals to carry water as quickly as possible to cities and agricultural areas. The result? The water flows too fast and doesn't have time to seep into the soil. Riverbeds deepen like open wounds. The groundwater level drops meter by meter, then tens of meters, and the once green and fertile riparian zones slowly turn into dust deserts. By the time the mistake was finally acknowledged, the price to pay had already spiraled out of control. To restore just 1 mile of river with heavy machinery, the U.S. government must spend between $75,000 and $100,000. Meanwhile, in the West, there are more than 140,000 miles of severely damaged rivers. The total budget required exceeds the economic capacity of any country in the world. Excavators, concrete, and complex designs prove utterly powerless in the face of ecosystem collapse. While top engineers admit their failure, an army of beavers silently performs the same restoration work at virtually no cost. A $10 million concrete dam can hold water, but it will never be able to repair itself or adapt to climate change. A beaver, on the other hand, that only knows how to gnaw wood can. Between enormous excavators that consume millions of dollars and a 20-kilogram rodent with sharp incisors, who do you trust more? Leave your opinion in the comments below this video, human engineer or beaver engineer, before we get to the shocking result of the project in Utah. When the beavers were released into the Utah desert, they didn't build dams for fun, they built them to survive. And it was precisely this basic survival instinct that unexpectedly triggered one of the most powerful hydrological chains of reactions humanity has ever witnessed. For beavers, water flowing too fast equals danger. Without a stable body of water, they can't find shelter, they can't feed, and they can't protect their young. That's why their only instinct is to slow the flow of water at any cost. The scientists are merely paving the way. They use a simple technique called beaver dam analogs, which involves driving a few untreated wooden posts into the bed of a dry stream to create a minimal structure. And then something amazing happens. As soon as they detect this basic structure, the beavers immediately take over. They transport branches, mud, loose stones, and even roots, weaving layer upon layer, sealing every crack with a precision no machine can replicate. The first results come very quickly. The water's speed is reduced from approximately 10 kilometers per hour to less than 1 kilometer per hour. The water stops rushing forward like a blade tearing at the riverbed. Instead, it begins to stay. When the water slows down, the miracle begins. The pressure is no longer directed solely downstream, but is forced to seep into both sides of the riverbank. The underground aquifers, those reservoirs that have been dry for decades, begin to recharge. Each beaver dam acts as a giant battery charger for the soil. Actual measurements in areas with beavers show that the amount of water stored in the ground is up to 10 times greater than in areas without them. They even managed to transform temporary streams, which previously only carried water for a few days after a rain, into permanent streams that flow year-round. But how does this animal know where to plug and where to reinforce? Behavioral studies show that beavers are extremely sensitive to the sound of moving water. A tiny leak that produces a murmur is enough for the beaver to identify it as a system failure and seal it immediately. It's a perfect natural algorithm. It doesn't need engineering plans or high-performance computers, but it achieves a level of absolute precision. This process occurs continuously, day and night, until the water flow stabilizes completely. Humans need months to design a dam. Beavers only need to listen. And so the paradox arises. The most advanced hydraulic systems created by humans operate according to fixed plans. Beavers, on the other hand, adjust in real time to the smallest changes in their environment. The water level rises, they raise the dam. The level falls, they lower it. An engineer without academic degrees is managing a system that humanity has not yet been able to fully replicate. During the recent record-breaking wildfire seasons in the western United States, as massive blazes raged across the landscape, scientists recorded a strange phenomenon. From the cockpits of firefighting aircraft, pilots observed an almost unbelievable scene using infrared cameras. Amidst a sea of flames that reduced everything to ashes, completely untouched green oases appeared. Why couldn't the fire reach them? The answer is simple. Water never burns. The wetlands created by beavers have become the most resilient shields on the planet. By building dams, they not only store water on the surface, but also transform the surrounding terrain into a giant moisture-saturated sponge. The water level in the soil and vegetation is so high that even the hottest embers are instantly extinguished upon contact with these areas. Dr. Emily Fairfax's research has shown that vegetation in areas with beaver dams is up to 3 times more fire resistant than in areas without them. While the outside world becomes a blazing oven, inside the beaver stronghold, the air temperature can be 5 to 10 degrees Celsius lower than the surrounding environment. These areas quickly become the only available refuges for thousands of wildlife species. From deer and bears to birds of all kinds, they all instinctively seek out beaver dams to survive. This is no longer simply a water restoration project. It has become a strategic system of national defense against climate change. Beavers are protecting what remains of ecosystems that human machinery is incapable of saving. This reality has triggered an unprecedented shift in thinking. Imagine you are a farmer watching a wall of fire tens of meters high approaching the boundaries of your property. Would you trust a fire truck that is running out of water? Or would you have preferred to have hired a colony of beavers to work on the creek behind your house years ago? Today, hundreds of farmers and landowners across the United States have made a historic shift. They've gone from hunting and scaring beavers to protecting them and bringing them onto their land, as if they were the most valuable bodyguards in existence. They've realized that a beaver colony can be worth more than a professional security team. But this has also ignited a heated debate. Is relying on a rodent to protect our property a sign of intelligence? Or is it actually a bitter admission that human technology has had to surrender to the wisdom of nature? Look at the Price River in Utah. Just a few years ago, this place was nothing more than a dry ditch filled with sand and loose rocks without a single tree in sight. But the arrival of the warrior beavers completely changed its fate, reversing the future of this land with a scenario no one would have dared to imagine. From a simple erosion scar, the Price River has become a labyrinth of emerald green waters snaking between sandstone cliffs. The change is so dramatic that a bright green band is clearly visible, cutting the desert in two, even in satellite images taken from space. This isn't the result of a multi-billion-dollar irrigation project, but rather the work of some of the most brilliant biological minds on the planet. The astonishing truth is that beavers didn't just bring water back, they brought an entire economy. When the water stabilizes, vegetation flourishes, and salmon populations begin to return. Ecotourism, sport fishing, and especially livestock farming in Utah are experiencing unprecedented growth. Farms that were once doomed to drought now have a constant supply of irrigation water year-round, thanks to the dam upstream. The importance of beavers has reached such a level that the Utah state government passed new laws in 2023 to 2024 to officially protect this species. Once considered a pest or a threat to canals and ditches, beavers have been officially recognized as strategic partners within the government's water security agenda. It is a belated but extremely valuable recognition of the contributions of these four-legged engineers. Today, the Price River is living proof of a paradox. The more humans try to control water with concrete and steel, the more they fail. But when we take a step back and give space to the true experts, with their hands covered in mud, miracles happen. Beavers achieved what mega hydroelectric dams, valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, could not accomplish. They were unable to create a sustainable, self-sufficient ecosystem capable of self-repair without costing a single penny of the public budget. However, this revival is not accompanied by absolute consensus. An intense debate is erupting in western cities. When beavers do their job well, the water level rises, and water doesn't distinguish between wild prairies and human constructions. Beaver dams have begun to flood major highways and damage ornamental gardens worth millions of dollars belonging to large desert landowners. Herein lies the point of maximum tension. On one side, the survival of an entire ecosystem and the stability of the water supply for millions of people. On the other, the right to private property. Is humanity willing to sacrifice a few highways or a few gardens to save an entire continent dying of thirst? Many argue that releasing hundreds of beavers into the desert is a brutal intervention, a biological experiment fraught with risks. But if we look at what humans have done to rivers over the last 150 years, who is the real destroyer? Should humanity take a step back and cede control of the planet to creatures that might actually be able to save it? Which side are you on in this battle? Trusting in the progress of technology and concrete, or believing in nature's amazing power of recovery? Like this post if you find what beavers have accomplished extraordinary, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the most unusual experiments and the greatest secrets of the natural world that we are only just beginning to uncover. The battle in the Utah desert continues. The beavers keep working tirelessly, gnawing wood, piling up mud, and building dams under the scorching sun. They don't care about human debates. They are simply doing their job, saving the world, drop by drop.